You wake up and don't feel like working, so you delay the task. Later, your mood improves and suddenly you feel ready to start, but by then, time is already gone. The next day, the same thing happens again. You wait for the right feeling. You depend on motivation. You act only when your mood allows it. And slowly, your life begins to follow your emotions. Some days you move forward. Some days you stop completely. And the pattern repeats. This isn't because you lack discipline. Your mood feels real. But it is constantly changing. There is a reason this keeps happening. In Japanese philosophy, there is a principle that explains this. But to understand it, you have to see the pattern first. And this is where the story begins. If this idea resonates with you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share in the comments where your mood holds you back the most. Chapter 1. The Unstable Routine. Omar was 27 and worked a standard office job. Every morning he opened his laptop with the same plan: finish his tasks early, stay focused, make progress. But most days did not go that way. Some mornings he felt motivated. He worked quickly. He finished things on time. Other mornings, the feeling was gone. He stared at the screen for minutes. Then he reached for his phone. One message turned into 10. 10 minutes turned into an hour, and the work stayed untouched. Later, he would feel guilty. But even that feeling didn't last. By the afternoon, his mood shifted again. Now he felt slightly better. He told himself he would start. But the energy was never enough. So he delayed again. The same thing happened at night. He planned to fix everything the next day. Wake up early. Stay disciplined. Do better. But the next morning, his mood decided everything again. And the same pattern returned. At work, the pressure started to build. Deadlines came closer. Tasks remained unfinished. His co-workers moved ahead. They completed projects. They stayed consistent. Omar noticed it. He tried to push himself harder. He forced himself to focus. But if the mood wasn't there, nothing worked. He would start a task, then stop after a few minutes, open a new tab, check something else, lose track of time again. Sometimes he would just sit there, doing nothing, but feeling busy. It started to show. One day his manager asked about a delayed report. Omar gave a simple answer, but inside he felt the discomfort. He knew the real reason. It wasn't lack of time. It was something else. At home, the pattern continued. He planned to learn new skills, watch courses, build something useful. But after a few minutes, he lost interest. If the mood was gone, the effort stopped. Weeks passed like this. He tried different methods: to-do lists, new routines, motivation videos. For a few days, things improved. Then the mood changed again, and everything collapsed. Part of him understood the problem. He knew what needed to be done. But knowing didn't change his actions. The feeling always came first, and the action followed the feeling, not the other way around. And this is where the problem grew deeper. He wanted to be disciplined, but his behavior said something else. His identity and his actions didn't match, and that gap became harder to ignore. Week after week, the pattern stayed the same. He tried. He stopped. He started again. He failed again. Nothing seemed stable. One evening, after another unproductive day, he sat quietly. No distractions, no noise, just the same thought returning. His mood was deciding everything: what he did, what he avoided, what he became. And for the first time, he saw it clearly. Something had to change. A few days later, something small interrupted his routine. Omar was sitting in a quiet cafe after work. He wasn't doing anything important, just passing time. His phone was in his hand, but his attention kept drifting. At the table next to him, someone was working. The man looked calm, not energetic, not motivated, just steady. No checking the phone, no shifting around, no hesitation before starting. Omar noticed it. The man didn't seem driven by mood. He just continued working. That felt different. After a while, Omar leaned slightly forward. "How do you stay focused like that?" The man paused, then gave a simple answer. I don't follow how I feel." Omar stayed quiet. The man continued. "There is a concept in Japanese philosophy called Mujo." Omar had never heard the word before. The man explained it in a simple way. Mujo means everything changes. Nothing stays the same. He pointed to something more specific. Your mood is the same. It comes. It goes. Omar listened carefully. For most people, mood feels stable, so they trust it. The man shook his head slightly. "But it isn't stable. It keeps changing." He paused again. "What changes should not control what stays." The sentence was simple, but it felt precise. The man returned to his work. The conversation ended there, but the idea stayed. Mujo. Everything changes. Omar sat there for a few minutes, thinking about his own routine. His mood never stayed the same. Some mornings felt heavy, some afternoons felt easier, some evenings felt clear, but none of it lasted. Still, his actions always followed those shifts. That was the pattern. For the first time, it made sense. It wasn't about discipline alone. It was about trusting something unstable. He had been waiting for a feeling that never stayed. Good moods didn't last. Bad moods didn't last either. But his decisions changed every time they did. That was the problem. Mujo described it clearly. Feelings are temporary, but actions create outcomes. The idea was simple, but it explained everything. For the first time, his situation felt clear. There was no confusion, no complexity, just a pattern he had never noticed properly. He didn't feel motivated, but he felt aware. Maybe he didn't need to fix his mood. Maybe he needed to stop depending on it. This was a different way of thinking. Not forcing energy, not waiting for motivation, just acting without trusting the feeling. The idea stayed with him as he left the cafe. Mujo. Everything changes. And this time, he decided to test it. This was the beginning of real practice. Chapter 3. The first attempt. The next morning, nothing felt different. Omar woke up with the same low energy. The same hesitation was there. Normally, this would decide everything. But this time, he paused. He remembered the idea. Mujo. Everything changes. His mood felt heavy. But he didn't wait for it to improve. He opened his laptop anyway. The first few minutes were slow. His mind resisted. He wanted to check his phone. He wanted to delay. The urge was strong, but he stayed for a few minutes. Then he stopped. The focus broke. The old pattern returned. He leaned back in his chair. Nothing had changed. At least, that's how it felt. But something small was different. He had noticed the moment. Before, he would act automatically. Now, there was awareness, and that was new. Chapter 4. Small awareness. Over the next few days, he didn't try to fix everything. He stopped forcing long work sessions. Instead, he started observing. He watched how his mood changed. In the morning, it felt low. By midday, it shifted slightly. By evening, it changed again. It never stayed the same. That became clear. One afternoon, he felt distracted again. Normally, he would avoid everything. But this time, he tried something small. He worked for 10 minutes. No expectations, no pressure, just 10 minutes. The first few minutes felt uncomfortable. His attention kept drifting. But he stayed. After 10 minutes, the resistance dropped slightly. He continued for a few more minutes. The task moved forward. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. That mattered. Chapter 5. The pattern break. He began to apply a simple rule. When the mood dropped, he paused, just a few seconds. Then he chose a small action. Open the document. Write one line. Continue for a short time. The emotion was still there, but the action didn't follow it immediately. This created a small gap. Mood appeared. Then a pause. Then action. That gap gave him control. It didn't always work. Some days, he still stopped early, but the pattern was no longer automatic, and that was important. Chapter 6. The first setback. A week later, the progress slowed. The workload increased. Deadlines became closer. His mood dropped again. This time he didn't resist. He delayed everything. One task turned into many unfinished tasks. Hours passed. Nothing moved forward. The frustration returned. It felt familiar. The same behavior. The same result. For a moment, he thought nothing had changed. But something else happened. He noticed the pattern faster. Before it took days. Now it took hours. And that changed his response. He didn't stay stuck as long. He returned to the task sooner. The setback didn't last. Chapter 7. Repetition and Practice. He returned to the idea again. Mujo. Everything changes. He stopped expecting his mood to stay stable. Instead, he focused on action. Even if the mood stayed low, he worked for a few minutes. Even if the energy was missing, he started anyway. The results were small. But they were consistent. Days passed. Then weeks. The routine slowly changed. He still felt distracted sometimes, but he no longer stopped completely. Work continued. That was new. Chapter 8. Real-life pressure. At work, the pressure stayed the same. Deadlines didn't disappear. Expectations didn't reduce. But his response changed. When stress appeared, he paused. Then he acted. One task at a time. He no longer tried to solve everything at once. He focused on the next step. That made the work manageable. His co-workers continued their routines. But now, Omar started to keep up. Not faster, but more stable. Chapter 9. External recognition. One afternoon, his manager reviewed his work. There was no long conversation, just a short comment. "You've been more consistent lately." Omar nodded. He didn't say much, but he understood what that meant. The change was visible, not dramatic, but noticeable. Chapter 10. The next setback. A few days later, another setback appeared. He woke up late. His energy was low. The mood dropped quickly. This time he delayed again. He spent time on his phone. He avoided work longer than he should have. For a moment, the old pattern returned. It felt like the beginning again. But something was different. He didn't stay in that state for long. He noticed it quickly. He paused. Then he returned to the task. The recovery was faster. That was progress. Chapter 11. The routine stabilizes. Over time, the process became simpler. He stopped thinking about motivation. He stopped waiting for the right feeling. He just started. Some days felt easy. Some days felt difficult. But the starting point stayed the same. He began the task, then continued. The mood still changed, but it didn't decide his actions anymore. The habit was forming, slowly, without force. Chapter 12. The real test. One evening, a difficult task appeared. It required full focus. It required effort, and his mood was low again. This was the kind of situation he used to avoid. He stared at the screen. The resistance was strong. His mind looked for distractions. He felt the urge to delay, but he didn't move. He stayed. He remembered the idea. Mujo. This feeling would pass. It always does. It didn't matter how he felt. It only mattered what he did next. He started the task. Slowly, without pressure, just one step, then another. The mood didn't improve. But the work continued. That was enough. Minutes turned into progress. The task moved forward. Chapter 13. Habit integration. At some point, something shifted. He stopped forcing himself to start. He just began. The process felt natural, not easy, but familiar. The hesitation reduced. The delay shortened. The action came quicker. He no longer checked his mood first. He trusted his routine. That was new. Chapter 14. The turning point. One day, everything felt the same as before. Heavy workload, low energy, no motivation. But his response was different. He didn't wait. He didn't hesitate. He started immediately. The task moved forward. The work was completed. The mood stayed unstable. But it didn't matter. For the first time, his actions were independent. That changed everything. He didn't fully understand it yet, but something inside him had shifted. The control was no longer in his mood, it was in his actions. And that was the beginning of real change. Modern psychology explains why this pattern feels so strong. Mood is not a decision. It is a temporary state in the brain. It changes based on sleep, stress, environment, and stimulation. Some days your brain feels active. Other days it feels low and resistant. These shifts are normal. But most people treat these shifts as instructions. When the mood drops, the brain tries to protect itself. It looks for comfort. It avoids effort. It moves toward easy rewards. Scrolling, watching something short, delaying the task. This is part of the brain's reward system. Dopamine rises when something feels easy or enjoyable, and it drops when effort feels difficult or uncomfortable. So when your mood is low, your brain pushes you away from effort. It is not trying to help you grow, it is trying to reduce discomfort. And that creates a pattern. If you act based on mood, your behavior becomes unstable. Some days you work, some days you avoid. The result is inconsistency. But the brain also works in another way. When an action is repeated, even without motivation, it becomes easier. This is how habits form, through repetition, not emotion. Each time you act despite your mood, the brain builds a pathway. That pathway becomes stronger over time. The action becomes more automatic, not because the mood improves, but because the behavior becomes familiar. This is called habit formation. And it is closely tied to identity. When you repeat an action consistently, it becomes part of who you are. You don't need to feel ready. You just act. This is exactly what Mujo reflects. Mujo means everything is temporary. Your mood is temporary. Your energy is temporary. Your feelings are temporary. But your actions can remain stable. The philosophy understood this long before modern science. It separates what changes from what stays. This is not a lack of discipline. This is how the brain responds to comfort and effort. In modern life, this pattern becomes stronger. Constant notifications, short content, quick rewards. All of these increase emotional fluctuation. Your mood changes more often. Your attention becomes weaker. So people begin to depend on feeling ready. But readiness never stays. That is why consistency feels difficult. The principle is simple. If your actions follow your mood, your life becomes unstable. If your actions stay stable, your results become stable. And that is where Mujo becomes practical. It teaches you not to trust what constantly changes, and to act on what can remain consistent. Weeks passed. The changes were not dramatic, but they were steady. In the beginning, the improvement was simple. Omar started tasks without checking his mood. He worked for short periods, even when it felt difficult. Some days were still slow, but he no longer stopped completely. That alone changed his output. Over time, his routine became more stable. He opened his laptop and began working. No hesitation, no delay. Even when the mood was low, the action stayed the same. Work moved forward every day, not perfect, but consistent. At the office, the difference became visible. Deadlines were no longer missed. Tasks were completed on time. His work was cleaner, more reliable, nothing dramatic, but steady. One afternoon, his manager made a brief comment. "You've been more consistent." Omar nodded. That was enough. The change was noticeable. The mood still shifted. Some mornings felt heavy, some afternoons felt distracted, but the reaction was different now. He paused. Then he acted, again and again. Months passed. The routine continued. He no longer depended on feeling ready. He started anyway, even when it felt difficult, even when the energy was low. The action stayed stable. Then a familiar challenge returned. A difficult project, tight deadline, low energy. This was the kind of situation that used to stop him. Before, he would delay everything. Now he didn't wait. He opened the task immediately. Step by step, he moved forward. The mood didn't improve. But the work continued. That was enough. But the process was not perfect. One evening, after a long day, he slipped. He delayed a task. He avoided it longer than he should have. The old pattern appeared again. For a moment, nothing had changed. But this time, the response was different. He noticed it quickly. He paused. Then he returned to the task. The recovery was faster. That was progress. The change was becoming stable. Not perfect, but reliable. One morning, he sat down to work. The mood was low again, but he didn't think about it. He didn't analyze it. He didn't wait. He started. That was the difference. His behavior had changed. He began tasks without hesitation. He continued even when it felt uncomfortable. He stayed calm under pressure, not because the mood improved, but because it no longer controlled him. This was the real shift. He was no longer reacting to emotions. He was acting despite them. At some point, the idea became clear. Mujo, everything changes, mood changes, energy changes, feelings change, but action can remain stable. He remembered how things used to be, how often he delayed, how often he stopped, how often he depended on motivation. Now the routine felt different, simple, consistent, controlled. This was the discipline he had been building. Not forced, not temporary, but stable. The mood still moved, but his actions no longer followed it. That was the moment he finally understood the principle. Mujo was never about removing emotions. It was about seeing them clearly. Mood was not something to follow. It was something to observe. And that changed how he acted. This was the quiet truth behind the idea. Most people treat feelings as instructions. If they feel ready, they act. If they feel low, they stop. But feelings are unstable. They rise. They fall. They change without warning. When actions follow them, life becomes inconsistent. And the same pattern repeats again and again. This is why many people struggle to stay disciplined. Not because they lack ability, but because they trust something that does not stay. The same principle applies to anyone. Your mood will never remain stable. It will change throughout the day, sometimes without reason. But your actions do not need to follow those changes. They can remain steady. They can remain controlled. And over time, those actions create results. They build routines. They shape habits. They define identity. Slowly, discipline becomes part of who you are. Not forced, not temporary, but stable. Mujo teaches something simple. Do not depend on what constantly changes. Act on what can remain consistent. That is where control begins. And that is where stability is built. Only then did he understand what the principle truly meant. Remember this idea. Act beyond emotion. Ignore temporary feelings. Stay consistent in action. That is the discipline. Your mood will change, but your actions can stay the same. That is where control begins. If this message helped you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share in the comments one action you will take today regardless of your mood.